Brother,
Yes, finally.
I had to start 3 times. It's not loud enough. What we gonna do? Is it my headphones? I can't hear nothing.
All right,
Hello?
can you hear me?
There he is.
Russell,
I can hear
okay.
you well.
All right, the technology is working. Okay.
Well, brother, I tried to talk about your history. And your history is so rich that it would take me hours to go through it. And even the thing that you want to just brush over, if you were to talk about someone's history, it's hard to brush over the marches that you led. We could spend an hour on your work with Dr. King. We could spend an hour on your work with Minister Farrakhan. We could spend an hour on your work running the NAACP. We could spend an hour just to work on the environment and environmental racism. We could spend hours on the work that you and I did on
Yes.
getting 10,000 black men out of jail by changing the law. We could spend a lifetime talking about your lifetime. But today, I just want to hear your insight as to what is going on, because you are right there on the scene in Washington.
Yes, I'm right on Pennsylvania Avenue, and the National Guard has been deployed. There's a curfew. All of the Trump supporters are out in the street. Unfortunately, the lady that was shot in the Capitol building, she just passed away. So it's been one death. There are a lot of people injured. This is not the way that we should resolve conflict. Even when there's a political dispute, those disputes should be resolved nonviolently. And we have to learn how to respect one another. And I think, first of all, I'm so thankful that what happened in Georgia. You know, it's like the yin and the yang, Russell. Sometimes there's good, sometimes there's not so good. But the good always overrides the negative. The good always overrides the bad. And so one of the things I've learned in my long struggle for freedom, justice, and equality, and of course, it's been a blessing, Russell, to know you and to work with you and to affirm the importance of our culture. You know, to me, you can always have a estimation of where we are on our long journey to freedom by our poetry, by our songs, by our lyrics, by our conversation, by what we do. And that's why I'm working now with the Black Press. That's what brings me to Washington, D.C. There are 400 African-American owned newspapers. But right now, for this moment, America's in a crisis. We're politically divided. We're racially divided. We're economically divided. But however, with all these divisions, there's still only one humanity. We're still brothers and sisters. We just got to learn how to recognize how we are connected to one another in spite of our political divisions, in spite of the racial divisions. This is no time for any of us to lose hope or to lose our courage, not only in America, but throughout the world. So I'm very pleased, Russell, to have these few minutes with you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity, always, good brother, to speak to you.
Let me say this, Dr. Chavis. You have always been, you've been a Muslim minister, you've been a Christian preacher, and you've been a world-class fighter for humanity. So you've always been a servant of the highest calling, always. And you speak like, I always say, like I have these yogis on, you speak like a yogi. You don't talk about division. No religion has separated you from another religion, or no religious idea has made you separate in any way, but only brought you into this discussion of oneness, which we've had many times.
Well, you know, I'm still doing my intermittent fasting. So I've learned so much about health, about breathing, about the practice of yoga, not just as a philosophy, but as a way of life. And I think that, you know, Russell, I'm this month, I'll be 73. But when I go to my class reunions, it's kind of sad. Everybody's walking around in crutches. I'm still running track. I can still do a 100-yard dash and a 220 dash. But not to brag, but what I'm saying is we're all blessed with life. And we should always nurture our lives, not to be in communion with brothers and sisters all over the world, but also with nature, with all of God's creation. You just can't be devoted to one aspect of the creation. You got to be connected to the whole cosmos, to the whole interaction. And I think that what happened today in Washington, D.C., is what happens when people fail to see the oneness of humanity, when people fail to get the gift of how we can make life better. We're in the midst of this global pandemic. You know, everybody should be working to try to get people properly protected to improve their health. But there were all of these pre-existing conditions before the pandemic. It just exposed the health disparities. So one of the things I'm hoping that will come out of this, Nancy Pelosi just announced a few minutes ago, they've kind of cleaned out the Capitol. They're going to try to go back into session to continue. It takes a lot of courage to be a member of Congress. It's interesting to me that people who don't want to agree with the outcome of the election will try to impose their will violently on other people's will. And I think that respect starts with self. You know, if you want people to respect you, you first have to give respect. I've learned, Russell, much of working with you, what you receive in this world is what you give. And we need to give better. We need to give an outreach to one another rather than push people down or push people to the side or try to you know, rather than suppress the vote, we ought to be trying to enliven the vote. You know, more people engaged is better. So
Ben,
I think we have to learn from this.
Ben, I got to ask you a question. Like, I'm looking at this moment, and I see that we have a very full agenda. I say we, you know, and I'd like for all humanity to see that taking care of the underserved communities by giving greater minimum wage, creating jobs through new technology rather than destroying the planet, spending money on that, and building new infrastructure, spending money, what we have to uplift the underserved communities. It seems like it should be a conscious decision on the collective. But also we're having this moment where, you know, for instance, when the speaker decides not to give the stimulus check of $2,000, it feels like we are at odds in ways. And, you know, as a mediator, a bridge builder that you've been your whole life, how do we as progressives who have an agenda for equal high quality health care, have an agenda for equal high quality education, have an agenda to give this? I mean, it's not a socialist agenda. If we pay taxes, should we not have health care? Should we not have, I mean, and even if it is socialist, what makes it terrible? They laugh when we say socialism is terrible when anybody who's in poverty is taken care of by the government in almost all first world countries. Almost everybody has health care. So this idea that the American democracy is perfect and can't be perfected is kind of what they're promoting. And it's interesting that they're promoting it to the people who need the support the most, that the people in the street come from struggle themselves. And they have been misguided. It feels as if, I don't want to judge them, but it feels like when they believe that this particular Republican Party has their interests at heart, it feels like race or division are being used to teach them to go against their own agendas. Can you give me a perspective on how we can love our brothers across the aisle, even though it feels as if they're acting out of what looks to me like ignorance? How do we learn to?
Yes. Well, thank you, Russell. I think first, the whole false ideology of white supremacy and racism is built on ignorance. You know, we need.
Well, lost his voice.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. I'm saying in the Quran and in the Bible it says, and in the Torah it says, the truth will set you free. Well, but first you have to get the truth, you know, and I think there's so many misinformation out there, the absence of truth, and then people come up with facts versus alternative facts. I think that a lot of people who are in the street right now, as I look out of my window here in Washington, D.C., you may hear all the sirens. They have National Guard here now from Virginia, from Maryland, and from Washington, D.C. You got all these police forces. You got all these people, Trump. And I'm looking out, these are men, women, and children with red hats on and Trump bandanas. It's very cold today in Washington, D.C. They're out in freezing weather because they feel like they have been aggrieved. And of course, they had a big rally today where Trump actually encouraged them to storm the Capitol. And that's exactly what they did. They stormed the Capitol. Now there's a woman who's deceased as a result. That's a tragedy, you know. And I think that we have to learn that crossing the aisle is just not Republicans and Democrats and independents, but it's just people. You know, I think what happened today in Georgia was a great lesson. We have a black preacher going to the Senate, United States Senate from Georgia. We have a young Jewish journalist who was mentored by John Lewis going to the United States Senate. What great, it's more than a symbol, that's a reality. And a lot of people made that happen. A lot of grassroots brothers and sisters made that happen, particularly black women. Stacey Adams and all of them went out, just knocked on every door, got people out. And that's what made the difference. So it's not so much to retreat from reality, but to engage reality. I think that's the good news of the day. Now that night has fallen in the nation, in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, there's a lot of hurt and pain and anger. And what I've learned in my long years in the civil rights movement is that you have to translate your pain, your anger into something constructive. You don't let it engage you, because there have been many times in my own life where I could have just thrown my hands up. I said, oh no, you never give up from that which you know is right. You want to stay on that right path, and you need others. You know, you don't want to be on a lonely path. You want to be on a path with other brothers and sisters. That's why I always try to learn and share what we've come to know. And that's why your podcast and your books and everything that you contribute to, Russell, has enduring value. It's not just for this moment. It's for a lifetime. And I tell Skip Gates and the people up at Harvard all the time, we should learn from history, not just tell what the history is, but we have to extract learnings from the history. I learned so much working with you, Russell, in the Hip Hop Summit.
Well,
I learned so much about language. I learned so much about poetry and the gift that every child of God has gifts. And the tragedy in life, Russell, is that people live their whole life and not even discover what their gifts are. And gifts is something that you just don't give yourself. Gifts is what you give to other people, you know. And so we have so much to give to other people, and that's what I've learned in terms of the practice, you know, of trying to take care. I can help more people if I got to make sure that I'm healthy, you know. And I think the issue of whether or not people are wearing masks, whether or not people are washing their hands, whether or not people are social distancing, these are only minor things. We got to dig deeper. Every day we should be conscious of what can be done to improve the quality of life, not only for one's own family, one's own community, but for all people in the world. I'm concerned that as the vaccines are being rolled out, that there are many parts of the world they're not going to get the vaccine in a timely way. So we need more equality. We need more equity in the distribution of knowledge and the distribution of truth that will set all of us free.
Ben, these are many issues you touched on. One, the vaccine, which is very controversial in the Black community. I'm in Indonesia at the moment, and I was supposed to be back there 3 times, but it got very COVID-y. First New York, and then LA. So I haven't been back in 8 months. But people are paying to get in the front of the line to take the vaccine here. They're doing the same in other countries around the world. So although the vaccine is not proven in many ways, is not researched enough, there is still a risk for us as people of color. We're 3 times more likely to die from COVID than our white counterparts. I talk about it. It is because of the American diet.
Well, I was going to say, let's cause it 3 times more.
But we are already in this position. Let me just finish. We are already in this position. We already have heart disease at 3 times more as a Black woman, more than our white sisters counterparts. We already have diabetes at an increased percentage than our white counterparts. We already have hypertension at an increase. So all of these pre-existing health conditions are in us now. If we were free from those conditions, then we might be able to sit back and watch the effects of the vaccine more. But many of us, because I've lost so many, I have the fear that many of us who do have heart disease and many of us who do have pre-existing health conditions may be distrustful of a government that certainly deserves to be questioned. Our whole history with the American system has been pretty scary. The things that they've done to us have been unbelievable. I remember when Minister Farrakhan said that the government is selling us crack. And I was a fan of the minister, and I heard him say it, and I thought, I listened to pretty much everything. I don't agree with everything anybody says, but I just questioned it. It didn't even occur to me that such a thing was true. In fact, I didn't believe it, honestly. And then, of course, years later, what was proven that the American government sold us crack. We know about Tuskegee. We know about apartheid in South Africa, which shocked to some people, but slavery in America, and Jim Crow in America, and so redlining of black people in terms of loans. And we know what the American government has done to black America. So it's worthy of our distrust. But now we have this vaccine, and it's not being distributed by zip code. It's not targeting black people. It may be targeting America, but certainly everybody's getting the same vaccine. Our sister Yolanda Carway got the vaccine 2 days ago. She's about 2 years older than me, I'm 63. I would be targeted for the vaccine. But I can sit around and wait. I don't have pre-existing health conditions. Nothing. I don't eat animal product, which is the cause of diabetes, not sugar. I don't eat meat or eggs and cause, cancer. If you have cancer, COVID will attack it. If you have a little bit of cancer growing in you, it'll grow it. It is really a smart virus. It attacks the sickness in our bodies. And a lot of those sicknesses or these pre-existing health conditions are created by our diet. There's a lot to discuss and unpack, but what I'm suggesting here is that those who have these sicknesses, if their turn comes to take the vaccine, I have to say, if I were them, I would do so. And I would not use the past experiences to dull my enthusiasm for what could be a life-saving moment. Your opinion on that?
I agree with you, Russell. Remember, we have to learn from history, not repeat history. We have to learn from what happened at Tuskegee. We have to learn from these things that happened in the past to ensure that they do not happen in the present or in the future. The good news is, in this particular clinical trials and even in the development of the vaccine, there were high-level African-American research scientists, epidemiologists, infectious disease experts who came from our community to help actually develop the approach to the vaccine. Dr. Corbett, the sister from NIH, helped develop this approach to birth both the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines. So it's not like that we were on the outside watching somebody concoct something to experiment on us. That's not the case with this particular vaccine. So, and the rollout now of it is going through a lot of hands. The last time I was in Atlanta, when I went to the CDC, I was pleasantly surprised to see so many brothers and sisters who are the decision makers in how these vaccines not only get developed, but how they're rolled out and how they get administered. But your point about these pre-existing health conditions, that's something that we really need to pay attention to. Why are people of color disproportionately with heart disease, diabetes, and Harlem? 60% of all the children in Harlem also have asthma. They're not born with asthma, but they get
COVID is attacking every lung issue, any respiratory problems. Go ahead.
Exactly. So again, it's not one thing. It's the combination of things. It's the culmination of things. When you went to Flint about the water, lead poisons in the water pipes, that's in addition to all the other pre-existing conditions that are in Flint, Michigan. So even if they put brand new pipes in, you would still have the high levels of fatalities in Flint because of all the other maladies. So that's why we have to pay attention much more comprehensively to what we eat, what we breathe, how we live, our whole outlook. We're learning more and more about how our health is inextricably linked to all these other matters that we have to pay attention to on a daily basis. But I agree with you. Diet is not only the substance that we ingest, but diet is also an indication of what we know and what we don't know about our health.
Ben, thank you for saying that. When my time comes, I can sit and watch. It's not a lot of COVID here. People are very respectful. They wear masks. They wash hands. They socially distance for the most part. And there's very little COVID anyway. I think being outdoors makes a big difference. My house is outdoors, as you know, Ben. So,
yeah.
So I'm not in a hurry to take a vaccine. I've never taken a flu vaccine yet. But I bet if smallpox was to break out, we would have to have everyone take vaccines. Or if some of the other diseases that vaccines have been critical to saving communities in the past. There's no doubt. You can be an anti-vaxxer all you want, but there are some vaccines that without which we would have lost a great piece of humanity. That's a fact. So now here we are in a moment where 99, whatever percentage of people do get cured, but are we losing all of our elders and all of our brothers and sisters, or are they at risk who have health conditions? And the answer is yes. We are losing in the black community at a rate of 3-to-1 to our white counterparts. And the answer is yes. You are at risk if you have the heart disease that a great number of our black women have, black men too, but black women in particular, or the diabetes that is rampant, the asthma that is rampant in our community is being attacked by COVID. So we may have to, and I don't like to, I think sometimes you say things that is polarizing. I would take the vaccine in Macy's window. That's my answer, because I'd like to see those who are at risk take it. And everybody's at risk because you lose brothers and sisters like losing yourself. So on behalf of the people who do have pre-existing health conditions, I would take the vaccine. And I'm going to say it because it's not, and I read so many conspiracy theories, some of which, again, could be true. But they seem absurd to me in some cases. I think we're at risk. When you look at LA and all of my friends who have COVID at this moment in LA, all who are recovering, almost every single one is recovering, of course. But I lost 15 friends. I lost my very best friend to heart disease, and I believe COVID attacked his heart. Ecstasy did not die. I'm just getting a text as we're speaking, popped up on my screen, that Ecstasy died. He had lung issues, lung or heart. Could easily be, and if you have a lung issue, then COVID is scary.
Yes.
If you have asthma, COVID is scary. If you have diabetes, COVID is scary. If you have heart disease, COVID is scary. You have cancer, COVID accentuates it, and it's scary. So you want to protect against those things, and black people have all those things at a disproportionate rate. I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
I just want to say, Russell, it's never too late to change that what is scary into that which has promise and opportunity. In other words, some of our patterns of what we eat and how we breathe and how we live, we can change those things. And to me, that is the antidote to this poison. That is the antidote to what's scary. When I went out of my apartment today, I ran into all these Trump people with Make America Great Again hats. I had on my hat. They didn't know I had a mask. They didn't know who I was. And I took time to nod and speak. I'm just a courteous brother. I spoke to everybody. And some of them spoke back, and some of them wondered, well, why is this Negro speaking to me? But my thing is, I didn't see them just as somebody of a different race or different politics. To me, once you begin to understand the oneness of humanity, whether you're right wing or left wing, or you're in the middle, or you're in the center, you're still a child of God. And I think that we have to be able to recognize our oneness more than we recognize our differences. And I think too much of our world today, and even in the media, I'm in the media, it focuses always on the negative. You want to get attention in the media, do something negative, do something tragic, but there's so much good news out there that doesn't get coverage. And that's why I'm encouraging our African-American owned newspapers. Always to
I
bring
want
that
to.
balance. Always to bring
I
that
want to
balance.
thank you. I want to come back to. You said that a situation like this is hopeful. It's not negative. It's a little struggle before the ease, or struggle that creates ease. We fought hard to vote at level at the. It's unbelievable how
Yeah.
well we did in Georgia. The
Yes.
fact that we now have a Jewish boy and a black preacher in the Senate in Georgia,
That's right.
and we have an agenda. We know we want to raise the minimum wage. I can go over it again, and we can go forever because there's so much. We know we want to help the underserved communities. We know we want to change the way the factory farming industry abuses all of our resources and is destroying the planet. We know we want to 2,000 toxins are in the American diet. 1,800 of them are banned in Europe. So there are 1,800 toxins that are in our diet. You don't have the same Doritos they got in Australia. Your Doritos got different in it. Your KFC ain't the same KFC that's here in Indonesia. It's different. They are poisoning you, the American diet, and maybe the Democrats if we push them. I heard Kamala say, Madam Vice President said that the animal product is destroying the planet. Those were her words. We hope she doesn't act like Al Gore acted when he talked about the planet and the environment for so long, and we got in as vice president and did almost nothing, or almost never talked about the environment. When he got back out, he became a leader in the environmental justice movement, but he disappeared during the time he was in the White House. We can't let that happen again. We can't let Joe Biden go into the office and not deliver on police reform, and he has to fight the police unions to get real prosecutors. We can't let Joe Biden go in office and not confront the prison industrial complex. Obama promised me personally in 2007 that was going to be a priority. It never happened until he left office.
Well,
It never happened until he left office.
I'm glad you cite those examples, Ross. See, what happens is once we elect whoever gets elected, you just can't let them go into the White House or to the Congress or to the State House or to the mayor's house alone. People have to go with them. You know, and I think that we have to learn from what happened during the Clinton administration, from the Bush administration. Certainly, we got to learn from the Obama administration as well as from, the Trump administration. The question is, what do we learn from these past experiences that can improve our experience in the present so we can ensure a better future for everyone? And that is why, as you know, you heard me say at times, I'm the eternal optimist. You know,
of course you are.
We deal with the reality, but I always see that glass as half full. I never see it as half empty.
It never is, brother. There's always a little bit in the glass. You say, look, there's some water in there. You know, right. We got to operate from a place of needing nothing, and we have to operate from a place where our heart is open, and then we see the present moment, which is, when you see the present moment, and this may be a little difficult people to digest, it's all God in all things. Exactly. So but then you get direction from God, and you operate from a place of needing nothing, and then you attract everything. This is basic scripture taught in all the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, and the Yoga Sutras. And we have to operate from this place of goodness, and then we'll attract more goodness. We do have work to do. We have to push our politicians without, judgment, because, it's hard for a politician to act. You know who said this? Andrew Young said he won the mayor's office, and on his way to the mayor's office, the same people who put him in office for protest, he ain't even been to work yet. The fuck, I ain't even going to work yet. He said, the wind at his back. They didn't just put him in office, they had the wind at his back. And so he went to work with people with demands. We have demands. It was a discussion, Ben, I got to put you in it, because behind the scenes, Black Lives Matter was talking to the Noble National Organization of Black Law Enforcement about endorsing the idea of giving prosecutors a freedom from police unions and freedom from politics in each community, so they could actually indict bad cops. That's a big deal to put those two organizations together to make that happen. We have to make sure that part of the bill doesn't get stricken from the record, because that's what when we talk about police reform, they talk about chokeholds. We don't care about chokeholds. We care about systematic change. And so we have to continue to push for that, because that's on the bottom of the bill, because even our Congress are afraid of the police unions. So we got to push to really make that happen.
Well, I think we have an opportunity to push it now. Now that there's more progressive control of the Senate over the House, now the White House ain't got no excuse. We need to push these things early on in the Biden-Harris administration. I agree.
I'm hopeful that they can do the job on the prison industrial complex that needs to be done. I'm hopeful they can do the job on the factory farming industry that needs to be done. I'm hopeful that they can raise the minimum wage. I'm hopeful that they can find programs and ways out when people come out of imprisonment. So back to the prison industrial complex, what are we going to do with those people coming home from prison? And what are we going to do about marijuana? It matters. And also, there must be some kind of a support system that our governments can give so that black people can be a part of that emerging business and other businesses. Freedom and equates to fairness, economic fairness too, right? So we need a lot. And we talk about reparations, and they will discard most choices, most proposals. But there are ways to empower black people to give them some kind of stipend for the work they've done building this country and the struggle that they've gone through. I mean, all the way up until the redlining of their districts so they couldn't get loans. I mean, there's so much the American government has done to black people. What can we do to help the American government do something for black people? There's a lot of stuff on our agenda. We have the ball. Let us not try to, and no matter how nice Joe Biden is, I anticipate, and I don't want to be negative, but I anticipate that the agenda that he has is one that has to be pushed and will be opposed. And so we're not going to come together by nice words. Trump, didn't matter what Trump said. It was the agenda, the judges he chose. It was the things he did to, you know, if we're going to lose the right for women have the right to choose, people are going to fight. There's no nice way of saying that. If you are on the right and you believe that women shouldn't have the right to choose, we are going to protect the women's right to choose. There are things we're going to do that people are not going to like. So we, as much as we, you know, want to promote the oneness, and I like to say I'd like to occupy the radical center and build bridges between the right and the left. It's not easy. It's a complex thing. And Joe Biden has to have courage. I feel like our last president, Democratic president, didn't push some of the agendas when he had the chance. We have the chance. We got to push our through. It's true. George Bush pushed everything through he could for the right. And Donald Trump, despite all the rhetoric and the things we talked about and his rude, crude, and unprofessional and unbecoming behavior, he pushed a right-wing agenda forward. And we have to now balance it and give people freedom, give people education, give people health care, give people support and stipends, give people stimulus checks, we have a lot of work to do. And they're not going to like all of it.
Absolutely.
So we have to do it.
Well, you know, I know President-elect Biden personally and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris personally. Joe will tell you in private that he wants to be pushed.
Has to be.
That's right. So and so, you know, again, I just want to take what happened in Georgia as a launch, not as the end of anything, but the beginning of something.
If you want another awesome video in our Black Excellence series, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.